talk a little bit about, why I'm here and what's the purpose and what's the agenda. As all of you know, I've not had the privilege of representing a good portion of San Mateo County. Much of my time has been devoted to San Francisco, although for the last 4 years I've represented the northern part of San Mateo County, particularly Daly City, Colma, and Broadmoor. But beyond that, I have not had the pleasure of representing San Mateo. And now, as your state senator, I want to do a good job, and I want to understand a lot more of the needs and concerns and consideration of this particular county. And so part of my direction to my staff has been to spend a lot of time in individual communities. Each of my staff are given certain cities that they are responsible for, certain cities and towns that they are responsible for. James Chang, who's my liaison to you, has spent quite a bit of time, and it is extremely important that he does that. Part of my responsibility then is to sit down and talk to him on a weekly basis to kind of hear what are the issues and concerns. And in addition to that, it's extremely important for me to come before the City Council to kind of hear about your issues and your concerns also. We hope eventually to hold a town hall meeting so that the citizenry will also have this particular opportunity for us to just interact and have a dialogue. And so that's sort of my strategy to learn and to understand and to be aware of some of the issues and concerns. So that's why I am here. Out of these meetings, there may be allocations of dollars that we may be looking at to be of help to you. There may be laws or bills that we will be putting through. We've had similar experiences in some of the other jurisdictions, and so I want to be as open as I should be relative to what your needs may be. A little bit about sort of my assignment in the State Senate, and so this may sort of give you some general notions of some of the things that we are in fact doing. In terms of my legislative package, they tend to be more about kids and healthcare. I mean, that's sort of my background, that's my passion. I believe that we've got to do all that we can to provide as many opportunities for our children to succeed, both academically and emotionally, as possible. It is extremely important that we keep our children and our families together and do what we can to be of help to them. And so that's sort of been my legislative history. But along the way, I know that it's not all about what I want to do, it's what I need to do within the California State Senate and also within the state of California. So the President Pro Tem has appointed me to a number of different committees. I sit on appropriation, I sit on health, I sit on human services. And human services are particularly important because that is the committee that deals with a lot of the social services within the state of California. I know that you don't deal with it directly, but it impacts you because if we don't provide the necessary human services at the county level, then nevertheless you still end up with those particular individuals. In addition to that, I sit on GO. The sort of term of art is that is the sin committee of the state of California. All the tobacco, the alcohol, the gambling, that goes through that particular committee. I also sit on business and profession, and that is also an important committee because that is the committee that deals with all the licensure within the state of California. If you're an architect, if you're an engineer, if you are an attorney, whatever the profession may be, it will come before my committee. It is that committee that determines your scope of practice. What is it that you can do professionally? What is it that you cannot do? Then recently, I was appointed to the Transportation Committee. And I don't know if the Pro Tem thinks that I'm not doing enough work, but I have the largest load of all the senators. I don't know what that means, but so I chair, or I am on the Transportation Committee. The Transportation Committee, the name has been changed to Transportation and Housing. And I think it's a recognition that it is extremely important that we look at transportation not in isolation, but also in connection with housing. And as you all know, that is an important piece in the puzzle to deal with the growth and development within San Mateo County. And so those are the tasks that I have before me. I also happen to be the Assistant President Pro Tem, and that title affords me the opportunity to run the session. So I will then be at the podium in the absence of the President Pro Tem to basically deliberate and run the session of the Senate. So that's sort of, my committee assignment. I should also mention that there is one committee that is going to particularly impact your area, and that has to do with the fact that I've been appointed to chair the Select Committee on Sustainable Development. And why that committee is important is that clearly some of the activities, along the 101 corridor is going to severely impact the traffic congestion, the livability, of this particular area. And the question then is, how do we deal with these particular kinds of challenges? I think the reality is that we are finding both in the San Francisco and in the San Mateo area, San Mateo County area, that there are increases in jobs, and out of that will be increased number of individuals living in this particular area or working in this particular area. And the question is, where are they going to live? How will they commute from one place to the other? And those are questions that we have, but we don't have a whole lot of answers. I have asked my staff, one from the Capitol and one from the district, to sit down with the different stakeholders and start the process of just trying to understand, what might be some of those solutions. And so we will be holding some hearings in the fall of this year to try and ferret out some of those kinds of answers. The fact that I will now be on the Transportation Committee also affords me with an additional set of resources to try to help with those kinds of solutions. And so those are the things that I want to bring to this particular body. I'm more than happy to answer whatever question, and I hope that this is the beginning of a long-term process where there is a lot of dialogue and discussions about what is it that I can do to better represent your constituent, what is it that I can do to better represent you and address the needs and challenges that you have as elected officials. So again, I want to thank the mayor and thank the city council and staff for your ability to sort of bear with me in terms of this particular presentation, but most importantly, just bear with me as we continue to struggle with these difficult issues. Thank you very, very much.
Senator, we appreciate your being here. Any questions from any of the council members?
I just wanted to make a comment, if I may.
Seppi?
Yes. Senator Yee, thank you very much for coming here. I know, based on what I know from the past from you, your heart is definitely in having service to people, and I appreciate seeing you at many of the meetings, attending and visiting with other cities to make sure that you're serving their needs. And your staff is generally here, and we're very appreciative of that. One area that I do want to see some changes, public transportation is definitely something that we have to think about. And we work on going north and south and so forth. The population is getting older, and a lot of us live in San Mateo County in the hills. Maybe some dedicated funding that they can take people from the residential areas to the public transportation centers. For example, from BART to here or vice versa on call. So those funds could be coming from some dedicated sources rather than just temporarily on shuttle service or so forth.
I appreciate that. That is an issue of grave concern to me. During the course of the campaign, and now there's been a number of discussions that I've heard whereby people are lamenting about the fact that there does not seem to be a rather well-rounded, integrated transportation system within San Mateo County, particularly on buses. There's the lack of connectivity. And so those are areas that weighs heavily on me. And as I indicated, now being on the Transportation Committee, and we do deal with a lot of transportation dollars, let's look at those kinds of dollars and help me work together to identify the priorities relative to San Mateo County so that we can, in fact, deal with a diversity of needs and interests.
Michael?
The only thing I was going to suggest, if 101 is a concern, which I know it is for us here in Brisbane, is that bus rapid transit on 101 is an idea worth investigating, I think. Dedicating lane in each direction just for buses.
You know, I'm one of those individuals that I think that if we are going to find solution, we should not discount any ideas. I've asked my staff to engage in discussion where, you know, everything should be on the table, no matter, you know, how inappropriate it may be or appropriate. Let's not use that as the guiding light. Let's talk about you know, what people are thinking about, and maybe there is a way of tweaking whatever the idea may be, and it may in fact be a rather viable one. And so we are going to be taking a lot of time to just try to understand the different solutions that have been offered in the past and now and in the future, so we can come up with something that is not only a temporary measure but a long-lasting measure too.
Si?
Senator, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it, and thank you for sharing your concerns with us. There are many of the concerns that we have. And one thing you can be sure of, sir, you'll be hearing from us.
Well, you know, you know, I have to be honest with you. You know, there are times when, you know, when I read the paper, you know, I'm glad that you're at the local level, because I'm not sure how I would be able to handle your job. And it is a tremendous challenge. You know, at the local government, you do have an opportunity to hear a diversity of opinion. And the difficulty is that, you know, you're still going to stick around. You're not in Sacramento. You can't hide, whereas maybe I can hide a little. So I do appreciate the challenge that you have, and I'm going to do whatever I can to be of assistance to trying to find solutions that are amenable and appropriate to address the concerns you have.
Clark, anything you want to say?
Just a comment. Thank you for coming out, Senator. As you know, this is probably the biggest hot spot in the whole, at least Bay Area. I don't know, it could be in the state actually, but regionally, you know, we're looking at it regionally with what's going on at San Francisco with the North End, and then also at the Candlestick Point and the Hunters Point, and then of course in Daly City with the Cow Palace area, and then Brisbane, everything that we have, and then South San Francisco. And certainly it's great to have you on the Transportation Subcommittee to address some of the things that are going to be coming up, which we're certainly going to be relying on your help, and of course be working with you closely on this whole situation. So, but it's going to be, I think, a magnificent thing for the area that's going to happen. So we really look forward to it.
Well, you know, I think that one of the things that you're going to know about me pretty quick is that I tend to be pretty straightforward. I'm not going to hide anything from you, because I think that if we are going to find solutions that works for everyone, and that we do it together, the only way that I know how to do business is to be really straightforward with you. I guess somehow during a recent event at some chamber, you know, I kind of laid out what I saw was potentially going to happen in along 101, and people were a little leery or worried about, you know, the kinds of picture that I was painting. I should say to you that there are forces that in fact would like to develop clearly around this area. They're not even talking about Brisbane. I think you've identified them already. I mean, we know for sure that there's going to be about 5,000 to 7,000 jobs coming out of South San Francisco. I know that within the Hunters Point shipyard area, I think that there's a lot of interest in terms of development in that area. In the Visitation Valley in the San Francisco area, there's a lot of interest in that development. In the Daly City area, in the Cow Palace area, there's a lot of interest in that. So I'm not even talking about Brisbane. So the problem, however, the challenge for all of us is that absent anything going on in Brisbane, there are going to be challenges that are going to be affecting Brisbane itself. And how we handle that and how we deal with that is something that I am saying to you that I want to work with you, and I want to work with the citizenry of Brisbane to somehow figure out how do we make all this happen to the extent that in some of these other jurisdictions, those developments are going to happen. And then within Brisbane, I'm going to follow your lead. I mean, you are the duly elected representative of this particular community, and I am not going to be about second-guessing what you have decided is in the best interest of your community. My role is to be of assistance to you and to be of help to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Senator, and that's what we look forward to because, as I said, we look at it, even though we only have control over what we do in Brisbane, we look at it regionally as a council, so I think we're on the right track.
Senator, I want to express my appreciation for your being here tonight. You come at a peculiarly interesting time because the next matter we have on the agenda are 3 presentations from students at the Lippman Middle School, and their subject is presentation of goals for the Brisbane Baylands. So if you sit down for 15 minutes, you might get some very interesting context. And the only other thing I'll pass on to you is I'm going to ask the city clerk to dig up and send to you a copy of the first official history of Brisbane, which is titled A Spirit of Independence. That'll tell you a lot of what you need to know the character of this city. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
And now we have students from the Lippman Middle School. And I think I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right, good evening, City Council and community members. My name is Stephanie Wusso. I'm the 7th grade teacher at Lippman Middle School. And like the City Council said, we are going to have 3 groups speak to you today, 3 separate homerooms of 7th grade students. We've actually been working on this all year long. The City Council invited us to share our ideas about a year ago. And some of the things they've done to prepare themselves for this is we actually did take a tour of the Baylands with Universal Paragon. We had a few guest speakers talk about the Baylands. Scott Kelstead came and talked about the contamination of the land and the soil. Jim Stickley came from WRT and gave an overview of the specific plan to our students. We went on a field trip to the zoo to learn about changing habitats, and we visited Blue Line Transfer to learn about waste reduction, reusing, and recycling. And finally, actually, every student wrote a research report of their choice on the Baylands and presented them to themselves. So what they're going to have for you today is we did make a map. Each class made a map, and they're going to talk a little bit about their reasoning behind choosing what they would like to see happen on the Baylands. So first we have Mr. Luperini's class coming up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Try to stay close to the mic so all our fans at home can hear you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the City Council. I and my fellow classmates, Paola, Amanda, and Allie, were chosen to represent our class in our project to map out the Baylands. We will talk about the following subjects during our presentation: retail, business, environment, community, and civic structures. First, we're going to start retail. Our group has decided to include certain shops and stores in the Baylands. A large mall right here next to the highway, and it's not here, but we're going to make an overpass to the mall.
Can you take the mic with you?
Oh, again? Let's read it. A large mall next to the highway, and we're gonna have an overpass so it goes to the mall, and then people can shop there. A large mall would bring in lots of business. A hotel. There isn't hotels near SF except the ones down near around in southern San Mateo. So a hotel would bring in tourism, and it would bring in businessmen from SF. A gym. Where'd you put the gym? A gym. Right here, so kids can get in shape during the summer, and it would bring in people from Brisbane and nearby towns. A racetrack slash golf course where they go. It's not here, someone took it off, but a racetrack.
Where would the racetrack be? Can you point to where it would be?
Possibly around here near Geneva, and a racetrack would be fun for kids, and it would bring in tourism, and also it would bring in opportunities for jobs. Warehouses, warehouses would bring, warehouse complexes would bring in jobs and also start opportunities for businesses. They would be near Geneva and close to the burned down roundhouse. All of the retail buildings will bring in tax revenue. Tax revenue can buy things for the community and schools.
Pull the mic down close to you. Out of here.
I'm talking about the environment and the community. And we think that we should have like a recreation park, which has a community park with play structures and maybe a dog park and an animal restoration habitat. And because of the contamination, we think that we should put concrete over the contamination and then put soil and grass so that when the animals eat the grass and stuff, they don't get sick. And trails and paths that lead all around the lagoon, and and then it would go through Brisbane over to where the town square is. And we also want to restore the wetlands so that we can have more wildlife, and the marshes would bring wildlife, and it would be a great place for the birds to migrate and nest, and also open space for wildlife. And we don't want pollution of greenhouse gases, so we were thinking there could be parking around the park where the lagoon is, and everywhere that the park and all that stuff is, then we won't have any cars or public transportation, so that it won't contaminate the air over there. And if we do have a shuttle, then we'd use natural gases like methane or the corn one where you make out of the corn. And yeah, that's about it.
I should have asked you to state your name for us.
Amanda Wagner.
Thank you, Amanda. Who's next?
I'm Paola. And I'm Ali Garcia. We're talking about the community center, the library. The current location, although convenient, is lacking ample parking for employees, city vehicles, emergency vehicles, and most of all, the public.
Please get a little closer to the mic or pull it down toward you. Thank you.
The current community center is completely outdated for Brisbane's current needs and growth. It is also located below the library, which makes it harder to access and see from the main road.
It would be much better to update and expand the current library into the community center area and make it more accessible and inviting for our younger children. A new, larger branch could be built in the Baylands area near the City Hall to allow adults, teens, and older children to have a more suitable facility.
For the high school, when it comes to a high school, we would love to have a new Brisbane high school because it would allow for new facilities, better resources such as computers, books, classrooms, tighter control of students since class size would be smaller, parents and families would continue to be more involved. The commute would be much shorter since buses may not be needed to take Brisbane students to various other high schools.
Bigger schools tend to make students feel lost.
Closer to the mic, please. Thank you.
Bigger students Bigger schools tend to make students feel lost and like an outsider, since cliques tend to form more in larger schools. Students would also get along with each other better in a smaller school atmosphere, especially since we've all been together since grade school.
For the City Hall, with all the people in Brisbane, we need a new City Hall in order to accommodate all the growth. Brisbane has so many departments: emergency departments, park and recreation, public works, marina, etc. The need of more space is updated facilities is huge, and this has transpired in such a few short years.
Brisbane has outgrown the new City Hall, and the police department has had to expand into trailers. It might be a good idea for the police department to stay in their present location and expand into the City Hall area, thus keeping it closer and centralized to central Brisbane, allowing for quicker response times.
The public offices should be located in an area that would allow more public parking, accommodations, include handicapped accessible facilities, also in the day and age. With the new Baylands layout, we have managed to increase Brisbane's tax base, keep public offices in Brisbane outside of Brisbane, which allows us to have all the benefits of income base, but keeps our public streets less congested, and also children to continue to roam around the parks and playgrounds without the increased likelihood of any accidents involving a child.
One of the best things that Brisbane ever did was to relocate the fire department, which used to be across the street from BES. And every time a fire alarm sounded, a fire engine would have to race through town in order to reach the emergency. They probably now have a better response time than ever before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
And group number 2. And please state your names for us.
Okay. Hi, I'm Samantha, and we're from Miss Levison's homeroom from Whitman Middle School. We would like to start out talking about a restaurant mall or a restaurant trail. What a restaurant mall or trail would be for the Baylands, it would be like just a trail of different restaurants, like from all over the world with different ethnicities. We think it would be nice to have this to show other people different ethnicities, and we think it would be really nice. We think it would be nice to place the restaurant mall along the lagoon, which would be right along here.
My name is Derek Hemming, and we could also have a movie theater, mostly a drive-in movie theater, because there aren't many around California, and the closest one, I believe, is in Concord. And also we should have some name brand stores like Costco for shopping purposes, and if not Costco, at least a grocery store like Albertsons, Safeway, or a Trader Joe's. And for some energy efficient stuff, we would think that there should be some windmills, maybe a windmill farm, and a bowling alley and a paintball arena and go-karts would be very exciting for the kids and the adults. The kids and adults will have fun, and the adults will be able to get great jobs.
Close to the mic and give us your name, please.
My name is Darius, and we think there should be an amusement park, but we think that most people in Brisbane wouldn't like it because it would be loud, like at night, and the lights from like the roller coasters, because most roller coasters have lights, and the lights might like bug the people, and like yeah, and then we should think there should like be like a go-kart, like a go-kart place called like Boomers. It has like go-karts, like mini golf and laser tag, and like that'd be fun for the kids, and the adults could get jobs. Yeah, well, like nothing else.
We also think it would be nice to have solar panels on top of most of the buildings in the Brisbane for some energy efficient. We also think it would be nice to have a mall, and inside the mall we think it would be nice if we had an arcade, a Target, video game stores, a Best Buy, a bookstore, even a spa would be nice. We also think throughout all of the Baylands, it would be nice to have bike trails and like little bike rental shops. Like for the bike rentals, you would be able to rent a bike for like an hour, and you'd be able to ride it all over Brisbane, or not Brisbane, I'm sorry, the Baylands. We think it would also be nice to have this because it doesn't pollute at all, and it'd get people out of their cars and actually give them some exercise. We also think it'd be nice to have a pet store and an animal shelter. We think it'd be nice to have an animal shelter because there are a lot of animals in Brisbane and a lot of animals roaming around San Francisco, Daly City, and San Mateo. So we think it'd be nice if there was an animal shelter there and a pet store for other people's pet needs. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much.
Well,
And our final group.
Good evening, City Council and community members. My name is Amira, and that is Aaron and Maria.
Thank you for inviting us to speak with you about our Baylands ideas.
We're here to talk to you about this, what 7th graders want on the Baylands.
We have made a list of our ideas and put these ideas into different categories depending on how the community will benefit from our ideas. The different categories are entertainment, healthy environment, money for the community, and better variety of choice for community. The entertainments are drive-in theater, movie theater, waterfall, stepping stones, Zen garden, rose garden, local art center, bowling alley, go-karts, paddle boats, paintball, laser tag, internet cafe. The healthy environment, there are solar plants by tanks, bike paths, windmills by the bay, open space, trees, gardens, air tram. Money for the community, go-karts, bike rental, bowling alley, Barnes & Noble, paddle boats, paintball, laser tag, Walmart, movie theater, fancy restaurant, gas station, Target, outdoor restaurant, BJ's restaurant, Hometown Buffet, Benihana's, Burger King, shoe store, mall, Safeway, Starbucks, bakery shop, ice cream parlor, Nike Town, gym, comic store, and pizzeria. Better variety of choice for our community. Bike rental, cathedral, outdoor restaurant, BJ's restaurant, Hometown Buffet, Benihana's, Burger King, bakery shop, ice cream parlor, pizzeria, internet cafe, Starbucks, bakery, hospital. Oh, any questions?
Any questions? No, thank you.
Here's a map our class made to represent our ideal baylands. Windmills will provide energy needed for the baylands. We also have solar panels. One second.
You could just tell us.
Solar panels by the tank farm to produce energy. Open space. We hope that the open space will bring back some of the endangered species, like salt marsh harvest mice, San Juque kit fox, and the San Francisco garter snake. We have also included a boardwalk to be placed over the wetlands to restore the wetland area. We have many walking and biking paths for people to enjoy the outdoors. We would plant many trees to produce oxygen and keep the air healthy. There's a bike rental shop that would rent bikes for a very cheap price so people wouldn't have to drive their car in the baylands. We would also have many bus stops for people to use public transportation. The drive-in theater. The drive-in theater on our map is put there because there are not many theaters in this area. It would be great entertainment for all ages.
Shopping and restaurant area. Some of them include Target, Barnes & Noble's bakery shop, ice cream parlor, and the grocery store. We tried to choose shops that were more earth-friendly. We would also like to see small businesses for the community in this area. We also chose some restaurants that we don't have nearby for a better variety of food choices. We hope that our choices will provide employment opportunities for the community. Local Arts Center. This would produce money for the community and allow local artists to show their work. Paddle boats. These would allow for transportation across the lagoon, and they would also be fun entertainment opportunities for the family.
You can see that we put a gas station and a hospital on the baylands. Our class had different opinions about these ideas. There's not a gas station near the south end of the baylands, so we thought we would need one. But a gas station could be dangerous because it could pollute the land even more than it already is. There isn't a hospital close by, but we are afraid that the methane gas for the baylands may make the people in the hospital even sicker. Creative entertainment ideas. Cathedral, laser tag, paintball, go-karts, bowling alley, internet cafe, paddle boats. We included all of these because we feel that there isn't a lot of entertainment in the area. So this would be a safe place to have fun.
So now that we have shared our ideas, do you have any questions?
Questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
We have a long agenda tonight, so I'm going to move right through it. One of the things we have is a proclamation of the City Council recognizing National Public Works Week. It has a whole slew of whereas clauses, but the guts of it are, now therefore it be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Brisbane does hereby proclaim May 20 through 26 National Public Works Week and calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Now this one I'm going to read in gory detail. John? Where's John Craighead? There he is. Up.
Assume the position.
A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Brisbane honoring John Craighead for his dedicated service to the City of Brisbane. There's a lot of whereases here.
Skip the whereas.
Whereas John served on the Parks, Beach, and Recreation Commission from January 2002 till March of 2007. And whereas John has brought to the PB&R his passion for and commitment to the improvement of life in Brisbane. And whereas John's informed and innovative style was always valuable to the Commission, as were his efforts serving on the variety of subcommittees and projects that he was involved with. And whereas John has been active in many community programs and groups, including the Community Festival, Festival of Lights, a member of both Brisbane Youth Sports Association and the American Youth Soccer Organization, all levels of Brisbane Youth, baseball, the Star Awards, at which he always seemed to have a microphone in his hands. And whereas John has shown his commitment to improving and beautifying the recreational facilities and enhancing recreation programs in Brisbane, and this is the last whereas, whereas many projects have been given careful consideration during John Craighead's tenure, including the planning and design of the Park Lane basketball courts, a great success, by the way, the Crocker Park Recreational Trail, the skate park, the community pool, Mission Blues Center, the Brisbane Dog Park, and the Quarry Road Park. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Brisbane thanks John Craighead for generously giving of his time and effort to help make Brisbane a special place to live. Thank you, John. John, if you'd like to offer a word of rebuttal.
You know, it's kind of dangerous putting a microphone in my hand, but I didn't know I was going to have to say a few words. I had a sneaking suspicion, but Jim Skeels confirmed it for me. I want to start out by saying I love this town. I wish time would permit me to say why, but it was an honor and a privilege to serve this town. Besides, the one thing I thought of sitting there was that besides being a father, I think that my greatest accomplishment was the work that we did on the PB&R to improve the town. And thanks to Jim made me promise that I would tout the highly effective staff in the Parks and Rec department.
So noted.
And to thank my fellow commissioners. I had sometimes think that people thought I was a little blasé, but my attitude towards it was that any work that we did was going to improve the town. And one of my life thoughts is if you can laugh at it, you can live with it. And sometimes through the endless subcommittee meetings and the sometimes rather laborious process of city government, you had to be able to have a sense of humor. But just when you were reading off those lists of things that we've accomplished just in a few short years, it's amazing. Brisbane is an amazing town. I don't know of a better place. So for those of you who have the privilege of living here, I appreciate it every day, and thank you very much.
And finally, under proclamations or presentations, we have something about a Brisbane Derby event.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, Randy Romrell, Parks, Beaches and Rec Commissioner. And we have our first City Brisbane Derby.
Can you have Randy sit in it and push him around?
Randy already said it.
I think you're overruled, Clark.
This is going to be our first annual Brisbane Derby. It'll be at the festival October 6th. The location of the race is on San Francisco Street where it meets Santa Clara Street. The age is from 8 to 14, and it has a weight limit of 175 pounds, which includes a car. And it's open to all Brisbane residents and parents that work in the town. It's open to all Brisbane businesses for sponsorships. So the sponsor's fees is $200, and that covers the car, t-shirt, and trophies. Sponsors will have their cars painted to the color they like, and there are logos on the side of the car to whatever logo they like. And mailers will be sent out to all the businesses. And the purpose of the Derby. It's a fun, family-oriented event, promote cooperation between parent and child, strengthen family bonds, help youngsters learn the importance of hard work, dedication, and sportsmanship, give racers and their families an outlet for healthy competition. Continue with a Brisbane tradition that has been lost over the years, as this used to be here way back, as you might remember, Clark. Give the community festival an added attraction that will be fun for participants and spectators. As you see the car right there, that is the kit that the builders have to use. And we are going to have 2 builders workshops Tuesday, June 5th and the 19th, 6:30 to 8 at Littman Gym. And any sponsors or racers who are interested are to contact Russ Carmick, the Brisbane Rec. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Does it have brakes?
It has brakes.
Hey, brake.
Yeah, it has brakes. It has pedal actuated brakes.
Wow.
Lincoln pinion steering.
That's better than my car.
Gets better gas mileage.
Yeah.
That's one of the rules, that it has to have brakes. And that one has brakes.
That's great.
Very creative.
And we are picking up an extra 5 so that members of the council can compete in their own separate classes.
But you put a weight limit on that.
We won't go there. Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Thanks so much.
Boy, the wheels sure aren't what they used to be, huh? Really tone those down.
I'll just leave it at that, Clark. That's how they do it nowadays.
Thank you very much.
It'll go like they used to, I'm sure.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may add, the one that you saw was dutifully created by Randy and Commissioner Dan Waters in I don't know how many hours just to construct that. So we should applaud them for their efforts as well on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We come now to oral communications number 1, where we hear from members of the public on matters not on the agenda. I have a request from Steve Hansen. And
Thank you.
We're running behind, Steve.
Thank you, members of the council and citizens of Brisbane. I just wanted to say thank you to the council for entertaining the kids. It was very interesting to hear their report and understand their desires. And if you just allow us to pick from some of those that they're showing, we'll be fine. But no, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other oral communications? Dana Dilworth?
Dana Dilworth. Now that we're on a roll of good things that we're doing, I just wanted to mention again about the summit or the symposium that will be about global warming, issues of toxins in the Bay. It's June 2nd, 9 to 4 o'clock at Golden Gate University at 536 Mission Street. And I'm starting to be asked about how this came about. It came about, even though I have a community advisory group, the issue of putting all the information together in a single format seemed to make sense rather than to bring these people to the attention of, and no offense, just Brisbane, and at 2 hours a month for 6 or 7 months. So I'm hoping that the morning will be about wetlands issues. From lunch on, there'll be a portion, an hour and a half to questions and answers about remediation techniques, and the final portion of the day will be about taking action, how to work with legislators and things like that. So it was really wonderful. We had everybody here today, and I invite the council members and any member of the public that's interested. Thank you.
This is a Saturday, June 2nd.
Saturday, June 2nd. Thank you.
Any other oral communications? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the monthly investment report.
Mr. Mayor, may I add one thing?
Please,
there's a very old-time person who passed away recently, Pearl Ray Chapman, and I'd like to close the meeting in her memory, and I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the meeting. So.
I'll second that.
Pearl Ray Chapman.
Yes.
Please don't let me skip that when we get to the end of the agenda. Okay. Now, we have 3 monthly investment reports.
Move approval of all 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We come now to the consent calendar. I've had a request to remove item D. Are there any others?
So moved. With the amendment?
Are you moving to approve everything but item D?
Correct.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Clark asked to remove item D, which is approve amendment to animal control contract for the County of San Mateo.
I'm not sure who I'd be talking to on this. What is actually Brisbane's portion of what we pay to the Peninsula Humane Society? Who am I talking to? Who has this?
Stuart?
Oh, I should have noted earlier that our city manager is off tonight doing an appropriate high school function with his high schooler. Stuart, you're up.
I was going to turn this over to the police department. Commander Macias.
Was she listening back there?
Surprise, surprise, Lisa.
Good evening, Council. I'll be honest, I'm not very familiar with the animal contract. Usually that's through Commander Macy, usually is in charge of that, and I'm not real familiar with that. I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay. Well, since you're up there, Lisa, you might be able to help me out here, because as you recall, recently we had an incident with the Peninsula Humane Society where we had a dog that was loose out on the Baylands, and
yes, I recall.
And we called the officer, and he said, "Well, gee, can we call the Peninsula Humane Society?" And says, "Well, generally they won't come out, unless the dog's contained.
That's correct.
And what are we paying them for? I mean, if we have, I mean, I don't see our officers have the expertise to chase animals and contain them, you know, I mean, I thought that's what they did, you know, and
In the past, they have. They've also cut back on their services, but it's very difficult for them to respond since they are limited in their you know, the actual officers on duty. But in order for them to come out, if we tell them a dog is in the specific area, by the time they actually respond to it, could be a 20, could be a 45-minute ETA, the dog is usually gone. So it's kind of sending them out on a wild goose chase.
Oh.
So what they prefer is if we can contain the animal somehow. Sometimes we put the dog in the police car. We have also a leash that we try to get a hold of the dog, or we can put them somewhere, and then we call them out, and then they'll come out and pick up the dog.
Oh.
Sometimes it just depends on where they're at, how long it's going to take them to respond, and how many officers they have working.
Okay. And how many people do they have, do you know? I guess you probably don't know that.
No, I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, because they're getting like $5 million a year from everybody in the whole county, and it seems like a significant amount that, you know, and they come out for dead animals or something that they actually pay more?
They do come out. When we do call them a specific animal on Bayshore, they will respond out. Also, we've had incidents where residents have actually trapped some skunks or raccoons of some sort that are injured, and they have responded out pretty immediately.
Yeah, but they say that's a miscellaneous charge to pick up dead animals and stuff. So, I mean, that's in addition to. I'm just kind of curious as to what we're actually getting with the service. I know we don't want to put our officers in a situation where they're doing this all the time, but, you know, it seems like we have our officers in a situation where they actually have to pick up the stray dogs, you know, and it just doesn't seem right to me. You know?
We do have a come along in the car in the back of the supervisor's car for those reasons.
Oh, okay.
But it's a little difficult sometimes to.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, what training do our officers get for that type of thing? Because, I mean, if you got, you know, I've seen things where, you know, on the news where pit bulls are, you know, not barking on pit bulls, so to speak, but, you know, have attacked animal control officers, where police officers generally don't have that training with animal control. What training do our officers have?
Our officers don't get any training in actually addressing with any of those animals. Some of our officers, obviously, like we have Sergeant Jackson, who's very familiar with the animals. She usually will, if she's working, she's very good at being able to get the dogs over. She'll carry little treats in the back of her supervisor's car.
Does this need to be approved tonight?
No, I think it can wait if you want.
I'd like to wait and maybe get some answers to, you know, what we're getting for our
Okay,
services.
Cy, did you have a question as well?
Yes, I had. Not thank you very much, not from you, but I think I'll get the finance director. And the last line...
Lisa.
Thank you. The last line says, the contract also clarifies that any services provided by PHS and SPCA for enforcement of laws pertaining to cruelty to animals will not be charged to the county. Who will that be charged to? Individual jurisdictions? Is that?
No, I think they absorb that cost. Right.
They absorb that cost themselves? Okay, then the last one where it says fiscal impact, it says the cost for 2007 and 2008 fiscal year is based upon the existing agreement, okay? Under the amendment, these costs will be reduced for the fiscal years 08-09 and 09-010 below the existing amount. Brisbane's proportionate share will reflect this reduction. By year 2010 and 2011, the cost will have been increased above the 2007 and 8.
Correct.
What? Could you give me a little thumbnail sketch?
Sure. If you turn to page 3 of the agreement, it shows what the costs for 07, 08 through 10 and 11 are.
Okay.
So what that aspect is, what that is saying is that in 07, 08, the overall county agreement will be a little bit over $5 million, and then it'll be reduced by $250,000. Then it'll increase again over the next couple of years in 10, 11, going above what it is in 07, 08. And our percentage is based on our calls for service as it relates to calls for service for the entire county, as well as to a fixed percentage of the overall contract. So we will, if we stay the same in our percentage, we will pay less money in 08, 09, and 10, 09 and 10.
So the reduction is due to our lesser calls for service, is that?
I was not part of the negotiation of the contract, so I'm not quite sure why the overall contract is down for the county?
I think they also negotiated some adjustment with the Humane Society on the amount they pay them, and that's reflected in the proportionate share allocated to Brisbane.
Okay, so could you clarify that as well for us, to be sure?
You can get back to what we pay specifically, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're passing that item for a future agenda. And we're coming now to old business. Item A, consider adoption of an interim urgency ordinance number 519, imposing a moratorium upon the establishment of new formula retail uses in the NCRO 1 and 2 zoning districts. Who do we hear
Mr. Mayor, I guess that would be me. In view of the hour, this matter was discussed in detail at your last business meeting, and the council at that time authorized staff to come back with an urgency ordinance to impose a moratorium on the establishment of any new formula retail store within the downtown Brisbane area, which is defined as the NCRO 1 and 2 districts. That is precisely what this ordinance does. It would become effective immediately for an initial period of 45 days, and then an extension will come to you at your June meeting. The whole purpose being just to preserve the status quo while the city considers new zoning regulations to deal with formula retail stores. And I really don't have anything beyond that to add unless the council has any questions.
So moved.
Hang on a moment. Are there any council questions?
No. I wasn't here when I believe this was the April 16th discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't here then, Mr. Mayor.
No questions? Do you have a question, Michael?
Yes, I had actually two questions on the ordinance itself. Page 1, I believe in item C that there's a
typo,
right. The
Yeah.
second line, the very end of the second line, it says "to located." I think it should say something like "to be located." And then in item E, I was wondering if...
I think actually it's versus to be located is to strike the D is to locate within this area.
Well, it could be either way. It's just a spelling error that I'd like to see corrected before this gets signed. And then item E, it reads, "It is the intention of the City Council to study and review the current zoning regulations for the NCRO districts to determine whether additional restrictions are necessary in order to control the potential impacts from the establishment of additional formula retail uses in this area." I'm wondering, Hal, if we need to make reference to the district character in this paragraph. I was thinking that we could say, in order to control the potential impacts on district character from the establishment of additional formula retail uses.
That's fine.
Okay, because great, thank you.
Any other council questions or comment? I have a request to speak from Mr. Webster.
Calvin Webster, 360 Kings Road. I'm up against this. I think it's ridiculous. One of the, I just read it over for the first time. It says, this ordinance is necessary for the health, welfare, the imminent health and welfare and, well, I don't know what the rest of the other line is, health, I don't know. Anyhow, isn't that a slight exaggeration? I mean, isn't that really, that may be the rationale for such a ordinance, but does anybody really believe that if somebody opens up a store in here that's going to affect the health and welfare of the city? It seems to me that let's say there's a hypothetical. I'm going to pose a hypothetical. Let's say that building across from Brisbane Hardware, I don't know if there's 1 or 2 San Bruno, and somebody wanted to open up a Starbucks there, coffee shop. Of course, they'd be prohibited under this regulation. Why? Because this is a successful formula that tends to go into more prosperous areas. I have nothing for Starbucks. I would rather go to any other coffee shop, generally speaking. I just don't like the format that they use, but they're successful. They're good business people. They bring revenue into the areas. They bring people into it, and I think it would be beneficial to a community. Now we have, I think, maybe 2 or 3 formulas stores now. One of them is the Submarine or the Subway, and Bank of America. I'd hate to see this town without a bank. You know, I think it started really prospering when Bank of America moved in here. Under that regulation, you wouldn't have the Bank of America. Now, there are a lot of businesses that certainly are an asset to a city. And I can point out 2 of those. I think the judgment should be are they patronized? Are they successful businesses? This isn't a museum. I mean, this is a living city that engages in commerce. And if the commerce isn't successful, this is not Williamsburg, you know. This is not some fabricated thing that has to be supported. If it's a living, real city, you don't need an ordinance like this. This is pandering to some people who believe in some quaint ideas of yesteryear, I think, and don't believe in a growing, vital, living city. And part of a growing, vital, living city is that you have a healthy commercial sector. You can't artificially turn people into entrepreneurs. They're either going to be successful or not. And if you have a franchise that knows how to run business, I don't see any reason why you should keep them out, whether it's Bank of America, Starbucks, Subway, or any other company that might want to come in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Would anyone on the council like to address Mr. Webster's questions?
Actually, I've got some pretty good background on it. That we do, I think that in discussions on the retail land use committee, that I think there's an argument to be made for keeping the stores that we have, but maintaining a balance between formula chain retail and our homegrown independent businesses. And there is some data that suggests that businesses that are started or owned by people in the community tend to contribute more dollars circulating within that community rather than those dollars going out to a corporate office in a remote location. But really, I think this ordinance is not necessarily to ban all formula stores forever. It's to give us time to create an ordinance by which we can decide how to handle formula stores in the future if and when we get applications in our downtown shopping district.
Clark?
Yeah, I had more of a question for staff. Mr. Webster referred to Bank of America as being a formula retail store. Can you clarify that?
That is not a retail operation, so it would not fall within the definition of retail store.
And
we're really talking about stores. Starbucks would, Subway would, office type of uses, and banks would not.
And in any case, this proposed ordinance would not impact existing uses.
That's absolutely correct. This does not affect any existing operation. It only has a moratorium on the establishment of a new retail business. And again, we're not establishing permanent regulations now. We're just maintaining the existing condition while we have time to study the issue. And how we end up in terms of regulation has yet to be determined.
Okay. Any other questions?
My only question was, Mr. Mayor, and I think I've said I wasn't here during the discussion, but I said before, in urgency ordinances, we generally use that if there's some impending danger of, I don't know of any. I don't know why we have to have an urgency ordinance. We have a couple of very good formula stores in at the village. They're doing well. I don't think they're hurting any of our businesses downtown. I think, yeah, we should protect our businesses downtown, make it easier for them to operate and to make a profit.
There was an interest by Starbucks in space within downtown Brisbane.
Anyone have any further comments or observations? Is there a motion?
Motion.
What is the motion?
I'd like to move approval.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? On the question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'm opposed to that, Mr. Mayor, for the reasons stated.
So the vote is 4-1.
You needed 4/5 votes, right?
Yeah, it passes.
Okay, item B on old business, consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the San Francisco Bay Cruises LLC to operate a charter boat at the Brisbane Marina.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm happy to report that we have reached a suitable agreement with a charter boat operator. Captain Lewis is here in the audience with us today. We're very excited about this business endeavor. It is not a formula boat. It'll be a 49-passenger carrying excursion, doing cruises around the bay, dinner cruises and cocktail cruises. And we think we've hammered out an agreement that will help him begin as a fledgling business here in Brisbane and hopefully grow. This agreement will be for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, we can renegotiate the contract at the time. One of the highlights of this particular agreement is the fact that the way in which the fee structure is developed is in a manner for a new charter type boat business. Ordinarily, boat businesses that are established in harbors and marinas throughout California generally share 5% of their gross receipts, depending on the number of passengers that they carry. To get Captain Lewis up and running, we've linked that to his berth rent. So what would happen is, in the first year, he'd be paying normal berth rent. The following year, it'd be 0.25 times berth rent. By the time we get to the 5th year, berth rent would double. In this manner, Captain Lewis knows what his fixed cost is throughout the entire year and is not at the whims of a fluctuating market. So that was an agreement we came to at the end of the 5 years. We may wish to revisit that based on already established usual and customary kinds of agreements for these type of operations. I've done this kind of agreement before when I worked in Santa Cruz with a charter boat operator, and it worked quite successfully, and the charter boat operator has since grown and is within a regular formulatic rent, if you will, rent and business net share. So we're asking for approval. Hopefully Captain Lewis can start about mid-June, Captain? About mid-June, get him in the marina and get him operating and taking passengers for hire.
Are there any council questions?
I just think this is a great addition to the marina, and I'd like to...
I take it that's a motion?
Absolutely.
I'll give you a second.
Question.
Questions, aye?
Repairs and maintenance, where's that going to be done?
Captain Lewis, can you address that? My guess is
you mentioned it in the grant of concession, but
good evening. My name is John Lewis, and the specific question, sir, was if you could repeat it.
where would you perform repairs, maintenance, equipment repair, etc., sanitation system, etc.?
Well, the primary repairs would be done in a designated boatyard, like as an example, KKMI in Richmond, standard boatyard facilities that could handle that size of a boat would be where I have done it and continue to do it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I've forgotten now. We had a motion in a second.
You did have, yes, sir.
Oh. Dana Dilworth?
Thank you. Well, I'd had some questions because the discussion of actually ferry service had come up, and people were talking about the kinds of oils and fuels that get into the bay from that. And I know I can picture a 27-foot boat, but not a 42. I'm curious to know the number of people and whether the waste remains on board. It's not anything that gets flushed out. and that there also be some consideration for the types of garbage that is created in the production of the food in terms of all the plastics, and if we could not have it be a big, huge hauling of plastic-covered stuff, I think that that would be beneficial to the community. Thank you.
Do you want to address the waste question?
Yes. The vessel is Coast Guard inspected, which means that the captain is responsible for having an onboard plan with respect to fuel spills, oils, that sort of thing. Ordinarily, these kinds of operations are usually very, very clean, recycle a lot of materials. It's in their best interest not to have a lot of materials aboard the boat that they have to haul back and forth, so generally they try to scale that down.
And then how many passengers does it hold?
49 passengers.
49.
And 3 captain and 2 crew, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah.
And for you, or perhaps for the captain, your operation, when you serve food and refreshments aboard, will probably much like hornblower yachts do. They keep all their stuff and then they recycle it at a special location. Is that correct?
Yes, we are mandated by the Coast Guard to have a waste management plan that for the vessel requires that all the garbage be kept aboard the boat and disposed of on shore at a proper facility after each trip. As far as the food that we're planning on serving, we're specifically going to use catered products that, as an example, come from a South San Francisco caterer. It's going to be a box lunch program, so it's going to be compared to a regular restaurant or dinner cruise facility, much less waste than would regularly be held. So,
Beer and wine. Beer and wine,
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other council questions?
Great.
Do I hear, I'm sorry now, did I have
Call
one
the
more?
question. Call the question.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded?
Thank you. I think there's a boat ride in it for all of you.
Yeah.
Welcome to Brisbane.
Yep.
Item C is a City Hall remodel update and a request for direction to staff on relocation concepts and on community meeting room seating alternatives.
Sir, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, good evening. It's been about 2 years now since we've had City Hall remodel on your calendar, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to sort of refresh everyone's memories on where we've been with this revision of it. Unfortunately, about 2 years ago, you'll recall that we alerted you to the fact that we were having performance issues with the originally selected architect, and we went through a period where we weren't getting submittals from him, so that architect was replaced, and unfortunately, that architect died earlier this year, so I suspect that it may in fact have been the gentleman's health that was causing some of the difficulties, but nonetheless, we're back before you. And I thought, again, I'd take that opportunity just to remind people who are checking in perhaps for the first time where we've been, that this process has actually started back in year 2000 on this remodel of the existing city facilities. So the staff report goes through and it spends a significant amount of time talking about the 5 components of it, about the seismic upgrades that we're doing to the existing tilt-up building, about the redesign and expansion to accommodate the police force, to relocate Parks and Rec to City Hall so that we can provide services there, the talk about the community meeting room and having a room that's dedicated to public meetings and that serves some of our purposes better there, and also the other improvements that we need to accommodate ADA requirements, putting in new stairwells, putting in an elevator so people can get to the second floor, replacing the HVAC system, which right now serves cold air in the winter and hot air in the summer. And then there are probably 2 or 3 pages in the report that talk about all of the public meetings that we've held in the interim. So again, just so that people checking in for the first time don't say, oh my God, how did you get to the point where you're nearly ready to approve plans and specs? And so it goes back, spend some time with that. And then tonight I have brought to you, as you mentioned, there's 3 items there. There is a schedule update, and that's the first attachment to your staff report. It's a whole list of target items that we've got to hit here that I have to hit within the next couple of months. And my primary reason for bringing that to you is just to help remind you that even though I'm not bringing things to you every single meeting, there are things that are happening. There actually is work that's going on behind the scenes, and we're trying to move forward with those options. The first sort of decision point or rather just opportunity for you to weigh in, is to talk about the relocation. Staff right now has identified 3 different relocations where we could take staff when we are putting City Hall through its improvements and knocking walls down and reinstalling shear walls. And I've touched on them briefly in the staff report. And they go like this. One option is to generally relocate somewhere within Crocker Industrial Park, so say within a mile of the existing facility. Another option is to put trailers in 50 Park Place, right in front, right in the street, actually close a portion of the street between Valley and the first private driveway, and perhaps 2 trailers in the parking lot. And then there's a third option, which is still a possibility. There's a building within walking distance of existing City Hall that we might be able to relocate. And I talk in the staff report about the advantages and the disadvantages of. Certainly the advantage of going to a building is that you're going to be able to provide service that's more akin to what you're getting right now. You're going to have some built-in offices, you'll have some counters perhaps. It'll be an environment that people are generally familiar with. It won't be perfect, it won't be exactly what you see right now, and there'll be some confusion as we settle in, but it will be an office-type building. The disadvantage to that when you compare it to something like a trailer is that a built facility, a constructed facility, is nearly always going to be more expensive. It's just the nature of the beast. The rent, the square foot rent is going to be more expensive on it.
And the order of magnitude and the difference of expenses?
We think that it could be $50,000 more differential. We're looking right now, we're working on an estimate of $180,000 for a year's rental to be in a fixed facility versus $120,000 if you're renting trailers. So when you consider that when you put a trailer in, we'd also have to install some sewer laterals so that you could run your sewer directly to them, and you'd have to do some temporary power drops. We think it would be on that range.
And the likely time period that would need this alternative space?
The construction contract right now is 10 months long, so I'm estimating 12 with 2 one-month options beyond that, just to make sure that we're not operating out of tents while we're trying to work on a contract. So I bring those options to you now just because I'm going to be in the process of beginning to negotiate these. I'm hoping to bring the actual contract itself to you next month. And if you really hate one of those options, I'd rather that you tell me about it now and say, Randy, that's the craziest idea we've ever heard. Please don't go ahead and do that. And then I won't spend any more time trying to develop it.
That sounds like an invitation for feedback.
Yes, sir.
Is there any feedback?
Go ahead.
Sign?
This permanent facility, whatever that is going to be seismically safe, is that correct?
The temporary one that we'd be going into?
The temporary one, yes, sir.
One of them has been recently upgraded, the other has not, of the 2 that I'm negotiating with, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Neither of these options are outlandish enough for me to rule them out tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. I'm happy to take any future guidance or questions on my sanity, but if the council's happy with those options, I'll continue to develop them all, and we'll look at what cost ones.
And just FYI, I'm happy to have you continue to develop them. If I'm voting tonight, I'd be voting for the cheaper one.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Okay. All right, then here comes a nice one. Seating options. I know that this is an opportunity where we get to weigh in, perhaps, on what we're going to do. You'll note that the front row of chairs that we have here are the different seating options that are available for what we hope will someday be our community meeting room. As I talked in the staff report, many years ago when we were developing a concept for our new community meeting room, we decided we landed on a concept that it primarily was going to be an assembly room. So its purpose was going to be to meet, and at one meeting we had said, and the council's texture has changed somewhat since then, there's some officials have gone and some have come back, that we were going to have 80 of the 100 chairs to be fixed and 20 of them to be removable. And when we say fixed, we mean ganged together. Like, for instance, the chairs all the way to the council's right, those 2 chairs are ganged together on a beam. And if you were to want an option like that, you could gang up to 5 of those on a beam. So we'd have 5 on one side of the aisle, 5 on the other side, and there'd be a total of 80 like that. And that gives you the fixed component that we're talking about. It's not so much that we're talking about drilling them into the floor, but what we're talking about doing is having a situation where we're not constantly having the building attendants coming in and moving chairs, and then when we set the room up, it's generally set up in the fashion it is. But what we would have is the first 2 rows, that would be the 20 chairs. We would be able to pick those up. They would perhaps either be connected together by some clips so that they'd be sort of ganged together, but that would be temporary. So in other words, you could pull those ganging connections, those clips apart, and you could stack the chairs and move them out. Part of the reason why we're trying to certainly discourage the council from having 100 removable chairs is I wouldn't have any place to put 100 chairs. If we had to take them out of the building, if we were going to hold a hoedown or something in the room for some reason, the chairs would be in the parking lot. 20 chairs perhaps we could stack on the little dollies and we could move them out of the room for a little bit, but to try and move 100 chairs, we just don't have the room to create storage space in the building for that. So having said that, I know that some of you have sat in the chairs. I'm not exactly sure how the council would like to move forward with selecting a chair. I know I've heard a number of different comments about them. If you were looking for a recommendation from staff, I think the ganged chairs that are on a beam seem to fit the bill the most elegantly as far as having a chair that's fixed and that's not going to move. And that same chair also has a component chair right here in front of me, which is the standalone option. So you'd have both sets of your chairs would look the same. And I also heard a number of people who are sitting in the chairs. I thought I heard the preference. A lot of people like the red chair, which is a multi model. Coincidentally, the red one happens to be the low-cost chair of the options that are out there right now. That happens to be the one that has the lowest list price on it. So the council might choose to give options here. You might choose to defer that to your subcommittee, which is going to meet on May the 29th and talk about plans. But either way, I am sort of looking for feedback now because I'm going to have to put something in the specifications that I'd like to bring to you in a month. So I'd like to hear some sort of feedback on chairs.
I have some.
Yeah. Feedback.
This is, of course, my feedback, and it's totally different than what you're looking at. Myself is, I know they have these fold-up chairs.
Yes, sir.
That are very comfortable. You know, they're ergonomically comfortable, and they actually fold up. And you can stack probably 100 of them on a dual rack that would be 3 foot to 4 foot by about 8 foot on a rolling rack, which to me you can push off in a corner. I would like to explore that option to give that room versatility for hoedowns or, you know, me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, some versatility that, you know, we might be able to use the room for city functions other than city council meetings, or perhaps community functions other than council meetings that, you know, instead it's fixed and it's limited in what it can do. It might be able to, you know, be a small performance space or something like that. It could be converted to do luncheons, you know, for seniors versus using this room. You know, something, you know, that just offers versatility. And I just don't want to rule that out because given space limitations on a lot of things, hearing it from the kids tonight, that we put in fixed seating, we have now limited that room to what it could do. And that's just my thought on it. So,
Si?
I like the idea. I like the idea because we're finally going back to what we had many years ago at the City Hall at 44 Visitation, where all the commissions, all the committees, all the groups that need to all met in one location. If there was a meeting, you know where to go. You didn't have to, well, let's see, today we're here, tomorrow we're there. And I like that idea. I think that's a great idea. Finally, we're going to accomplish that again, I hope.
So sir, if I'm
Which
clear, you're
chair
looking
I
at the
prefer,
gang.
sir? I'm open. Everyone
Okay.
seems to, all the comments I heard was the red one is a nice one. So, however, it's the cheapest, but how well will it hold up? That's the thing.
They won't.
That is always a rub, Chair.
Yeah.
You know, yes, sir.
Comments on this end?
I'm fine with any one of them. I sat on the red one and definitely was comfortable. At the same time, could the red ones be connected like the ganged or?
There is a ganging mechanism, but it would not be, I don't believe that you can put it on a beam, such as the chairs you can all the way to your right, ma'am. So that's the distinction with the ones that are on the beam, is that they are much more fixed. All of these other ones, like for instance, the one that has the interesting light-colored pattern in front of you actually has a connecting mechanism installed on it right now. It's got 2 clips that are under the seat, and they're little plastic pieces that you pull out when you want to connect them, and you slide it to the connecting pieces on the next seat, and then you can push it away when you don't want it. And some of them have less interesting, I guess, connecting type pieces. They have just simple clips that come permanently mounted to the chair, and you push them together. it's the same old issue, I think, with chairs that have connecting devices that you can take apart. Those things are going to break. So I tend to try and stay away from those. If you want chairs that are going to give you the most flexibility, and I completely respect Councilmember Conway's perspective on how to make it the most perspective, I think that's the way to go if you really want to have flexibility in a room. If you want to have a room that's designated as a meeting room, I think you ought to have chairs that are ganged and that are permanently ganged, because when you start pulling these things apart, your comment about the type of chairs you have and the type of connectors, they're going to start breaking. And the next thing you know, you're not going to have gang chairs anymore. You're going to have chairs that should be ganged but have broken connectors that have snapped, and they just don't work very well like that. So it's you either need to, my recommendation would be that you make a decision to gang them all, or gang some and not the others, or don't gang any of them and leave yourself the ultimate flexibility, but just recognize what you are going to have. Then you will have flexibility. Will your meetings perhaps work as well as you'd like them to sometimes? Well, maybe not, because things will be flexed and moved around. And
Of course, if you gang the chairs, they're harder to throw them.
yes, sir. And if somebody could throw 5 chairs ganged together, I think we should just let them and vacate the building, if that's...
Seppi?
What about color options? Because as it is, we had talked about what color the carpet should be.
We can bring a whole suite of colors in, ma'am. I think that's a decision that we can postpone. That's not a decision that you need to make tonight. I think there's a whole palette with all of these.
Okay. And I know I sat down on the blue one, and blue one was comfortable too, no doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Michael?
No question, Mr. Mayor.
Pam?
Yes, I would like to echo Sia's comments about having a permanent room for meetings for Planning Commission, PBA&R, and City Council meetings. And so that's what leads me to think about the gang chair, the semi-permanent solution for the bulk of the room, because we do have Mission Blue Center for lots of performing options, and that's a very, very flexible space. We have a lot of city meetings these days, and I kind of like the idea of dedicating just one spot for all those meetings. So I did sit in the gang chairs, the 2 blue ones that are tied together by a beam, and those are comfortable to me. I also sat in the single seat that is designed with the same pattern as these 2 that are put together, and that single one was not comfortable to me. And I don't know if it's the defective chair or if it's my sway back or what, but I'd be curious to know if that chair is defective or not, I guess is my question.
That was delivered brand new this morning, sir.
This one over here on the end, nearest to you?
I'm sorry, are you talking about this pattern one or the blue one?
This blue one.
Oh, no, it's the blue one. Okay, the blue one I'll have to check on.
That one.
That one I can't, I felt the same thing you did, sir. I mean, I'm not quite as tall as you, but when I leaned back on it, I felt like I didn't stop nearly as soon as I wanted to. I kind of kept going back for a little bit.
And I sat in all of them. The red chair, I did not find that comfortable, but its price is very comfortable. Other than that,
I thought that Cy actually liked the versatility idea. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you liked the idea of having the room versatile versus...
Well, I like it. No, first and foremost, I like to have it as a permanent chamber for all of our meetings, and I think Mike reflected that. It's possible if you want to you know, say use it for the 50th anniversary. It will be ready by then.
Yes, sir.
Is that a yes?
That's a hesitant yes, as the engineer is trying to do math and calendars in his head, sir.
I left your calculator.
Well, sir, you know, it's an interesting, and I won't point him out. There's a gentleman in the audience that I've been using to provide me some assistance on this project who recently went through one of these, and I think he thought he was being helpful, but he sent me a note from one of the Business Week reports that indicated that something on the order of 3/4 of all the people involved in business relocations are either fired or demoted after a relocation and a business remodel, and that just really didn't give me comfort as I'm sitting here responsible for this project.
That sounds like a good inherent observation on data.
Yes, sir, it certainly is. It certainly makes you think a little more carefully about what you're doing.
2011 is the 50th anniversary.
Yes, sir. I sure hope I could do that, but I'd hate to guarantee one of my firstborn on it. So anyway, Mayor Waldo, sir, you're the only one I think I haven't heard from.
I haven't sat in the chairs.
Sir.
How about we take a break for 5 minutes?
Sounds good.
Sure, that's a great idea, sir. Thank you.
That would be good.
Test drive.
Clark?
Test drive. And invite the audience to test drive, perhaps. That's right.
Huh?
I've checked them all out, and the cheap one felt fine to me. So was that 3 for the cheap one?
No, I think everybody likes the comfort of the red one. I don't have a problem with it. It's just whether it's permanent or fixed. I thought we should have versatility. I think we're making a mistake by not, but if the majority of the council agrees, that's what we do.
Well, I'm inherently in agreement with you on that one. But others?
I'm fine with the red. At the same time, I really like to suggest to check the seats at the County Board of Supervisors. They're stationary and they're very comfortable, and I do not think they're that expensive. Just check that out.
Sir, if you don't mind, let me offer this. I kind of hear people going between the red chair, which we would have some external clipping devices on, and perhaps some of the other chairs, with a request from Councilmember Richardson that we look at the county. I'm fairly certain that I can put a bid alternate in the schedule, so why don't I at least put it in 2 options? And then we can select whichever one we like when we bring final contracts back to you.
I see a nodding of heads.
Done, sir.
But I also heard 3 with versatility.
One of those options will be very versatile, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only other comment I just had, gentlemen and Madam Richardson, we have one chair that was recommended by the consultant, by the interior designer consultant, for the dais and the staff chairs, and Councilmember Conway is test driving that chair this evening. And so your choices for the dais and for staff would be that chair or the chairs you're sitting on now. I think, the chairs you're sitting on now go back to the library when we're done. I believe there's some arrangement where the library get rid of some chairs they had, and we're storing these up there temporarily. So that's going on. But I could replace either one of those. So if you've got a preference on chairs.
So we check Clark's chair and give you feedback.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's comfortable.
Want to change?
No, that's fine. I'll figure. I'll accept it.
And that's all I have, sir. I'll be more than happy to take feedback afterwards, unless you're uncomfortable doing that outside of the meeting.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, so I think you're still on the dais, so we move along to consider approval of plans and specs for 800 block of Humboldt.
This is a good thing, sir. This is we are finally very close to the Federal Highway Administration issuing the advanced construction notice, and so there's one little or 2 little tricky things here that I've asked you. One, I've asked you to approve the plans and specifications and to authorize me to publish the notice inviting bids when I receive the advanced construction notice, and that's telling you that I haven't received it yet. I expect to get it within a few weeks.
And when you receive the notice also means when you get the money?
No, sir. That's the other tricky part of it. Receiving the advanced construction notice from FHWA to get these emergency relief funds tells us that we are now in queue to draw money from this emergency relief fund when it gets funded. So there are not funds available right now, so we will be loaning money to the federal government, loaning it to ourselves, because we'll do this repair at 837 Humboldt, and then when that money becomes available, Federal Highway Administration via Caltrans will distribute it to us.
Any questions about that?
I have a question about something else on this. Can you explain to me concrete lagging?
Yes, sir. I'm trying to be quick about this. The lagging that you've seen in our other projects, we have steel H-beams or steel I-beams, and we have wood lagging going between those.
Okay.
In this case, we will simply pour concrete between the 2 of those. So it won't be concrete beams. It'll just be poured concrete.
So that's where the mesh is? The mesh is then between the channels of the beams? And okay, great, thank you.
I had a question that piggybacks on that, Michael. And that has to do with Randy on the specs. By the way, good job on this, too.
Thank you, sir.
And I really appreciate it. And this is just for clarification, but on the I-beams, on the drawing, it's stating that it's a steel beam treated with inorganic zinc.
Yes, sir. You've got a sheet number in the lower right-hand corner?
It's 404, C4.
404, yes, sir. Thank you.
404.
Right.
In upper left-hand corner, excuse me, other right. Stating what the beam is.
Right.
But then on the other sheet, it says, calling it concrete. Okay, it's got the concrete leg and soldier pile pier. Now, the soldier pile, that's the steel beam.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And it calls it concrete soldier pile pier.
The pile itself is the steel beam, sir.
Okay, I'm looking at drawing C2 now on 204.
Okay.
This would be about kind of towards the dark black line.
Sure, where it
number
says,
10.
where there's an N for new.
Right, it
Concrete
says-
lagging and
no.
soldier pile pier retaining wall. So that's telling you that the lagging is concrete.
No,
and
go to the left of that, Randy.
Go to the left of that, okay.
Concrete soldier pile pier. And number, it says typical. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I get what you're saying, sir.
So
Let me check with the designer, and if he finds that to be a conflict, I'll have him change it.
okay, yeah, it's kind of confusing to me, but I know what you mean, but...
Right, I hear what you're
Now-
saying.
now you
Right,
say it,
it's,
I go, wait a
right,
minute.
it's not a driven concrete beam like you would find as a pile supporting some of the buildings at
Pile,
Zero Point.
okay.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely, sir. I get what you're saying.
Are there other questions, Michael?
Where does the water discharge go? On the downhill side of the face of the retaining
Yes.
wall? Does it just...
It just dribbles out. There's no groundwater in the area, so really any of the discharge there is just intended to be nuisance water that would be in the gravel back drain.
All right. And why the difference in the funds that have been requested for obligation and the engineer's estimate? Why is it Caltrans is requesting 345 when the engineer's estimate is 232?
I estimate things on the higher end, sir, than the engineer did. So when we put that money in, when we put that money in, that was the original estimate when we started dealing with this over a year ago, when FEMA was the lead agency.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Hang on, I have a question.
Okay.
You have a sentence, as a side note, the owner has inquired about the possibility of funding the extension of the new retaining wall to the full length of this property frontage.
Yes, sir.
Is that included or not included?
That would not be included, sir. Right now, the family that owns this property, the son has a development proposal. I don't believe it's been formally submitted to the city, but they're planning on knocking down the existing building, which you'll recall received some mud earlier, and then building a much larger home that would have a second unit as part of it, an in-law type unit. And so that development would trigger a requirement to widen Humboldt Road. And what we have told them is that if he does in fact do that, regardless of what happens, whether he does it or not, when we get our prices in to do this, I told him that I would meet with him and I would meet with the general contractor and attempt to negotiate a change order to our contract that would be to his benefit, and he could choose to either fund that change order or not.
Or not.
And that, right, he wouldn't have to do it, but I told him, you know, these are people that the mud went down their hill, and they've been very kind to us and very tolerant of us not having fixed this for years. So I told them that I would do the project management, the construction management of that on our time, and that if they just funded the construction, that we would do it, and then it would be two birds with one stone. The whole road would be widened, and they wouldn't have to put any additional effort into it other than just paying for the cost of the construction.
That's great.
Si, you had a question?
Yeah, Jim, on all these job descriptions on the F pages, are those just federal minimum wage scales? We're not using all of these people, are we?
No, sir.
Okay. In other words, if you needed to use one or two of those, that's what you'd have to pay.
It's just a listing so we know what the minimum wage is, yes, sir. It's all
Thank
the
you, sir.
classifications.
Are there other questions?
Motion to approve plans and
Motion to-
specifications.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Andy. We'll move now to new business to accept PB&R report on recreation survey results.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, very brief introduction. We're here tonight just to present the results of the recently conducted Parks and Recreation survey that was part of the STAR.
That was a brief introduction. Thank you.
And we have two people here tonight I'd like to introduce. Our consultant, Jessica Aloft from Aloft Consulting, who will give you her opinion on what took place. And we also have, as you've already visited with, the current chairperson of PB&R, Randy Romrell.
Let's hear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Sorry, it's getting a bit late, and I'll try to keep this moving quickly through the results of the survey. This is the survey that was circulated in the Brisbane Star, the winter 2007 issue. Two-sided, 16 questions. And I'm just kind of stalling because they're going to get my slides ready.
Don't stall, you'll catch up.
Okay, you have in your packet the PB&R survey results. It's a short 3-page report of what we found in the survey. And you also have some further background information, a full qualitative and quantitative assessment of the questions. So that's all there for you. As Jim mentioned, I'm Jessica Aloff from Aloff Consulting, and I'm ready to get started. Okay, I'll just get started on the survey was commissioned by the PB&R Commission and Jim Skeels, Parks and Recreation Director, and it was really designed to gauge the current perceptions of rec services, rec programs, and then also to try to get an assessment of what people would like to see in future programs and offerings. So the last time a survey like this was done was over 4 years ago. So it really was time to do another survey. I have a copy of it also if we need it.
Keep talking.
Okay. We did a prize drawing at the Monte Carlo night. That was a lot of fun if anybody was there. It's one of the ways that we wanted to try to drum up interest in the survey and get people to respond to it, was to do a prize drawing. And that did get people out there. We had, I think 4 years ago, there were about 120 respondents to a similar survey, and this time there were 166. So that's another good batch of people that responded.
There's no power to it.
Excuse me. Do you want my computer?
You can go ahead and do the whole thing, Jessica, if you want. No,
just talk.
Just keep going? Okay.
Go ahead.
But I could swap out if you guys want it. Okay. I'll continue.
An old 50s TV.
Sort of weird because I don't know when we're going to start, and then I'll do a little backtrack.
No.
Smack it on the side.
Like an old TV.
There's a clip at the top. Yes.
Let's be quiet and let's let her talk.
Okay. Thank you. So the respondent households, mostly Brisbane residents responded, although we did ask people to respond who were either Brisbane residents or employed in the city of Brisbane. Parks and Rec Department serves the whole community of Brisbane, including people who work here, not only residents. However, mostly residents did respond. And most of the respondent households were either adults or adults with young children. Infant preschool and K through 8 were kind of the biggest chunks of children that we had. And then a very small proportion had high school children at home or were seniors at home. So then getting into the questions, and if we get our slides, I'll breeze through this part I'm already doing. Okay, so first we wanted to know is what are they interested in? What are people wanting to do with their free time in terms of recreation activities? And the top interests were in aquatics and swimming, arts and crafts, and cultural programs. And then about 54 respondents had ideas for new programs, and there were a wide range of things that people were interested in terms of new activities. Big ones were toddler and pre-K classes, and art and music classes for adults, and cooking classes. So just a selection of things people would like to see in terms of new stuff that the city offers. And so then we asked about attendance at city-sponsored events. We wanted to get a sense of what are the events that people are going to, and what are the events that they're not going to, and look for potential ways to improve those. The most highly attended events in the past 12 months were the concerts in the park. We had 121 out of 166 respondents had gone to the concert, at least one concert, so that's great. The community festival, 116 respondents said they had been to the community festival, and if you look in your qualitative comments, there were rave reviews for last year's community festival. People thought it was excellent, and there were lots of fun things for kids to do, and some people said it was the best ever, so that was great. Thank you. And the Festival of Lights was the other big event that people had attended in the last year. I'm going to say everything I just said again. No, I won't.
Don't say it again.
I promise.
Click in the lower left corner here.
Yeah, the little tiny thing that is way too tiny for words. Okay, so here's about the survey, what I told you previously. By the way, this is all, we're going to get the PowerPoint slides up on the city website so that the members of the public, anybody interested, can go through it. Next slide, sure. This is the 166 respondents, mostly Brisbane residents, and you can see the respondent household pie chart. I promised Jim I would make him a pie chart because that's what consultants do. So there it is, your pie chart. Interest in programs and activities, as I said, aquatics and swimming, arts and crafts and cultural were the big three that people are most interested in. I think cultural programs, what they really meant by that, again, were concerts in the park, any kind of music, art festivals. People brought up, kind of wine and art and this kind of stuff. So, okay, attendance at city-sponsored events. This is at the community festival, I believe. So the highest turnout there you can see, and then the lowest turnout were the beautification day and the water carnival. So there's some comments in there and some ideas for how to bump up the attendance there. Yeah.
I had a question. Is the beautification day the habitat restoration? Or?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I believe that's what it is. And there was some confusion among respondents about what beautification day is supposed to be, and is it about the city or is it about habitat or the mountains? So there's some room for clarification there. Might get more people out. Okay, so then we had a big question about what are the facilities that meet your needs and what are the facilities that you see needing improvement. From that, since we asked people to only comment if they had participated in using those facilities, we were able to extrapolate which facilities are most highly used. And what you'll see in a subsequent slide is that some of the most highly used facilities are also ones that correlated with needing improvement. But here we have the most highly used facilities were the community park, and there's a picture of our beloved park, the pool, Mission Blue Center, the community center, and the marina. These are the ones that came up as really much loved, but also seeing some room for improvement. The community center, where we are now, the ball fields at the elementary school and at Littman, the BES rec room. That's kind of the only, well, one of the red flags that came up was about the rec room, and you'll see in your qualitative comments that's something that you can just immediately address and people will love you for it. The play structure at both the community park and the Solano Street tot lot, which is the one next to Silver Spot, are both play equipment playgrounds that people really feel like could use some improving. Facilities that are most meeting the need, Mission Blue Center was, obviously it's a new facility, it's beautiful. The senior room, the Quarry Road Park, and Park Lane Courts all got very high marks. So these are the facilities that people identified as needing some improvement: the rec room at BES, the ball fields, the teen center, and the community center. Okay, so after we finished asking them what facilities meet the need, which need improvement, which do you use, we asked them, what would you like to see in terms of new facilities? And of course, a major proposed development is going in the Baylands at some point in the future. So we asked them, potentially, if that happens, what would you like to see out there in terms of parks and rec? The big ideas were walking and biking trails, a gym, more ball fields, and parks. There were a wide variety of suggestions out there, so if you wanted to look through your qualitative responses, you'll just see everything you can imagine in a grab bag, but a lot of really good ideas, really exciting ideas. Actually, Sherry, if you go back just one slide, that's just a picture of a wading pool, a water park in Toronto, and some people had mentioned, water play, lagoon, that kind of thing, so just to get you thinking about new stuff out there. Next slide, thanks. So then we wanted to ask about what they'd like to see in the gymnasium that is slated to go in as part of the original development agreement up there at the Ridge. And there were 102 responses for what to include in that new facility. Weight training, ball courts, small group meeting space came up in several different areas of the survey. People really feeling like there's not enough places to have a meeting of 8 or 10 people, 15 people, especially after hours. It's hard to find a place to do that. So some people mentioned that here and other places as well. And then childcare came up. And this part of the survey was asking about how people participate in rec programs. And 2/3 of the respondents who answered the survey had registered for a class or a program in the past year. And they told us that they prefer to talk to a person. They tend to register in person, and many of them were not aware that they could even register online. So there's some education that can be done on that. And of those that had not participated, the main constraints they talked about were not having time. Inconvenient class times came up, which is something that I know the Commission's going to be looking at, and also finding childcare that, again, came up in a few different areas of the survey. And as far as people getting their information about recreation programs and services, they mostly get it from the Star and the signboards. Those are really successful. Mailings are also really good, word of mouth and the luminary. Those are the 5 main areas that people are getting their information. So the numbers on the left correlate to the number of respondents who checked that off. And they could indicate multiple sources. So that's where they're hearing about your information.
And the school package, which category would the school package
That was included
come under?
too. That's
So that's a separate...
it was a smaller number.
Okay.
I put in the top 5 things, Michael. There's it was in the 40s, I think.
Okay.
Between 30 and 40 respondents mentioned the school packet. And final thoughts? So we asked people at the end of the survey, just, is there anything else you want to share with us? Sometimes you get really good stuff, by asking people openly if there's anything else. A lot of praise for the city staff, and I was not prompted to put that in there. Praise for city staff and existing programs and services. And people just had a lot of positive outpouring of appreciation for what the city does for us, for residents. There were specific suggestions, again, that people reiterated, really very specific things that you can understand exactly where they're coming from, which is good for improvement. They appreciated being asked, so it is good to do these things, ask people what they think. And they were very optimistic about future potential programs and services. And finally, in their own words, I enjoy living in this great community. I think the Parks and Rec Department do a fantastic job of providing a variety of programs. Thank you for asking our input. You all do a great job. Brisbane is the best. Thanks to all who work here and live here, and we love Brisbane. Several times got that. We love Brisbane. A lot of positive feeling about the town. And that's it. So
Thank
Randy,
you very much.
Randy's here, not that Randy, that Randy's here to let you know what the Commission's going to be doing with the results, because this is just really the beginning of a process for them of kind of picking this apart and working with it. And then also, as I mentioned, we're going to put it on the city's website so that the public can figure out what people said about their own rec program. So are there any questions for me?
Questions?
I did. I had a question. Just really quickly, on number 11, item 11,
right.
It shows that Channel 27, it's only 15 source of information for people to get information.
Uh-huh.
Do you know, did they say the reason why? Because they don't have cable, or?
Oh, why so few people responded getting information from the cable? No, we didn't ask any follow-up questions about why or how they didn't use these information sources. But yeah, 15 people out of 166 said that they got information from Channel 27, so it's just not too high. Anything else?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
I
you.
guess nothing's really being asked of us except to accept the report, and
That's the action item, is to accept.
I'll second that.
Real quick, the commission has formed a subcommittee to follow up on this survey, and they will report back to the commission. And we just want to thank Jessica. Working with her was great, and she did a great job with all the numbers, and she was fabulous.
Great. Thank you, Jessica.
Good job.
it's nice to have somebody homegrown that does it too.
Yep, absolutely.
A small stake in this, as you can see.
I'm now going to exercise a little prerogative and change our agenda items to make sure we finish the ones that we must finish tonight. So I want to move us to item E, to determine if any changes should be made to the proposed water and sewer rate increase, and direct staff to bring back adoption of increase at our July City Council meeting.
Staff met with the Water and Sewer Subcommittee last week. We reviewed the Water Sewer Subcommittee reviewed the budget. There's currently an ordinance in place that requires the city to pass along any increases from SF-PUC and from inflation to ensure that we don't have the large increases that we've seen in the past in water and sewer rates. We have seen from SF-PUC an increase of 20% in our cost for water in fiscal year 07-08 and 3% in the cost for wastewater processing. This would equate to a 6% increase in the water rates and a 1% increase in the sewer rates. The cost for the non-water related and the non-wastewater related aspects of the fund are not going to be going up next year, so we would not anticipate passing along any inflationary increase. So for that reason, staff is recommending a 6% increase in the water rate, a 1% increase in the sewer rate, and we will be doing the same process we did last year by going through a 218 process where we will notify all property owners, as well as this year we will be putting it in the water bills when they go out in June, and then we will have a meeting 45 days after that fact. So we will be coming back in September with the appropriate ordinance to raise water and sewer rates.
Any questions?
This also won't be affecting...
Right. Based on last year, Councilmember Conway is correct. Based on the direction from last year, we will not be affecting the low-income people who are on the LIRA program, and we will keep their rate the same. And the Water and Sewer Subcommittee is looking at alternatives to ensure that in keeping the rates lower in the future as well.
Other questions? Is there any requested action tonight?
Just if there was direction not to bring, to do something different with the rate than what is required in the ordinance.
Is there any such direction?
No. No, we can't justify it at this time.
Thank you very much for your report. We will move forward. I'd like to go to item F, consider introduction of ordinances 521 and 522, waiving first reading pursuant to recently enacted Health and Safety Code, Section 33342.7, etc. Fred.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, these ordinances are required by SB 53, which is a state law that was adopted in the last legislative session in response to the Kelo decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's one of a slew of bills that address the issue of eminent domain for redevelopment purposes. And what SB 53 does is require that redevelopment agencies with project areas that were adopted prior to 2007 have to restate their program for the use of eminent domain within the project area. And so these ordinances were prepared by our redevelopment council, Goldfarb and Lippman, to meet that requirement. The program for eminent domain within both project areas is simply a restatement of the provisions that are in the existing redevelopment plans for both project areas. And it states the expiration date of the authority for redevelopment, which is 12 years from the time that the last amendments were adopted that extended that power. So for project area number 1, it's June 14th, 2014. And for project area 2, it's a date, let's see. I'm sorry. August 21st, 2014.
And the suggested action item is to introduce ordinances 521 and 522, correct?
That's correct.
Do you need separate motions for both, or?
Yes.
You do. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 521.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I had a question.
I had a question. Fine. You're talking about eminent. Do any of these areas actually come into downtown residential Brisbane?
No, with the exception of the PG&E substation and the Levinson parcel in Northwest Bayshore area, all of the redevelopment project areas are east of Bayshore Boulevard.
The downtown Brisbane is not affected.
It's not affected by this. It's not in either of the redevelopment project areas.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 522.
Second.
Any discussion? On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one passes as well. Okay. I'd like to go to item C, consider appointment of Peter Steeler to the PB&R.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh,
Third.
With all those seconds and thirds, all in favor? Aye. Terrific. Item D, consider approval of traffic control measure on San Francisco Avenue.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just got a question.
He's waiting for you to sit down.
You're not getting away with it. With the Derby coming up, this is not going to affect it in any way, is it? You're not going to put speed bumps in it, are you?
I was trying to think of a way to affect it to make it more interesting, sir, but I'm not sure that I could come up with one right now. It won't have any impact on the Derby at all.
Call question.
Call for the question, Mayor?
Did I have a motion and a second?
You have a
Okay.
motion
Yes.
and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? And we have one more action item. If I can find it.
Item B.
That's to consider a request for a fee waiver in the amount of $1,080 for William Spencer Company to install a 70-foot flagpole at 911 South Hill.
so moved.
Second.
I'd like to hear the staff report.
Okay. Sounds like a winner, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, William Spencer of William Spencer Company at 99 South Hill proposes to install a 70-foot tall flagpole to fly only the American flag. The municipal code requires approval of a use permit for a flagpole to exceed 50 feet in height in the TC1 Crocker Park Trade Commercial Zone. The application fee would be $1,080. Mr. Spence requests the City Council waive this application. Of course, you know, there's staff time, noticing the public, conducting a public meeting involved in granting a use permit for this use. It's the staff's report, if you have any questions.
This is in Crocker Park, isn't it, on South Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
By the quarry.
yeah.
Any questions?
That's a 6-story building, isn't it?
70 feet.
Just a comment.
This fee is built into the ordinance, correct?
That's right. The law requires a process. The process requires notice, scheduling, a public hearing, the cost of staff time, which the public pays for through their and the other businesses pay for through their taxes. So it's a cost and staff time that, in effect, you'd be waiving.
I frankly don't see a particular reason to waive it, but I only have one vote.
No, you have 2.
3.
Then on the motion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, you were opposed.
I thought the motion was not to waive.
The motion was to waive, I think.
Oh,
Was it
sorry
not?
about that.
Motion was to waive the fee.
And there was a second?
The motion, second.
And on the motion, those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Nay.
No.
Seppi, how'd you vote?
I voted for it.
Oh, okay.
Does not pass. Thank you very much.
3-2.
Now we go to staff reports. City manager's report on upcoming activities. The city manager is not here, but his pinch hitter is.
And he told me to take a pass on this one.
You're learning, Stuart.
Very good.
Following instructions to the letter. Mayor, council matters, subcommittee reports. There are 3 listed. I assume that means because somebody wants to report. Solid waste?
Solid waste, was
What
that?
are the 3?
Solid waste, water, sewer, storm drain
The
studies?
solid waste was
Passing through?
the franchise,
Yes.
or the passing through the rate increase for the South City Scavengers.
Oh, that's right.
And the meeting also covered the 2005 diversion report pursuant to AB 939. And the city's preliminary diversion rate is 75%, which is well above the required 50%.
Mayor Waldo.
Please.
Over here. It's me. I put these on the agenda when we have subcommittee meetings in case any of the council members who are on the subcommittees want to report out. It's not necessarily, they don't need to. So if there's anybody who would like to report out on any one of these.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to report?
Well, I'm glad that Assistant City Manager Fred Smith reported on the solid waste diversion. I was a part of that meeting, but I couldn't remember what we discussed, I hate to say. And I was very impressed with our diversion rate. I believe I was also on the Economic Vitality Subcommittee, but I'm drawing a blank on what we discussed there either.
It was obviously a vital conclusion.
We were talking about future infrastructure needs for the city as it relates to funding future infrastructure for the city.
This is the popular business
license
structure, right?
Yes.
Right. And that is something I think the council is aware of, where by restructuring we might be able to increase revenues to the city by, I think, in the order of $500,000 a year.
Correct.
And then at the same time it is a more equitable distribution of taxation amongst the businesses. At least that's our intention.
That's correct, and there has been no fee increases in the past 12 years, am I correct?
There has been no change to the business license ordinance in the past 25 years.
25 years.
Do I assume correctly that this is something the committee is going to
Yes.
bring forth to a regular agenda?
We're definitely.
You're still working on it.
Yes.
I'm just trying to remember what it was. Welcome to saturation point.
I can appreciate that. Well, thank you for those reports. We have a matter on city council travel and training. Is that on your proposed trip, Seppi?
Yes. Shall I say? I was selected by the California League of Cities to attend their training, and they're paying for my tuition, they're paying for the hotels, and it's going to be in Fresno and it's going to be in Sacramento. Fresno, so the cost that they're not paying is the transportation. As I understood that we had a mileage reimbursement that indicated that if you're traveling within the 15-mile radius, your mileage allowance would cover that. Anything more than that, you can get reimbursed. I understand that the policy that was brought forward, our city finance manager says that when you accept mileage allowance, there is no mileage reimbursement. So I'm asking to see if whether the council would be willing to pay for my transportation, one-time round trip coming from here to Fresno and back, and from here to Sacramento and back.
What do you mean? You want a donation?
No, for example, to Fresno I can fly.
Oh, it's faster to drive.
But there is no mileage reimbursement.
You wouldn't drive to Fresno because you didn't get reimbursed for the miles?
Well, I'm trying to see if whether the city would be willing to pick up the cost of the transportation.
Oh, that's a bigger question. If we're paying mileage reimbursement as part of the compensation.
What? Stuart, do you want to talk about it?
There are cities that, when they do automobile allowance, as we do, if you travel outside a certain radius, then they do reimburse people for traveling outside of a certain radius. The travel policy that council adopted, I believe it was last year, said that if you receive auto allowance, then there would be no reimbursement for traveling by vehicle. One of the things you may want to reconsider that based on just how far somebody is going to be traveling. If you travel, 300 miles in your car, or 200 miles, with the price of gasoline today, your automobile allowance is not, your monthly automobile allowance would not recover that cost. So maybe you may want to re-examine a radius for mileage reimbursement.
I guess my question is you're not doing this for City of Brisbane, it's California League of Cities, so it's like you know,
That's correct.
that's
It's
kind of
not
the
for,
trouble with it.
Yeah.
That's
They
correct.
provide the same thing.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the council is not comfortable, I would have no hard feeling or anything like that, but I would prefer that.
In this
if I'm
particular
leaving-
case, if it was related specifically to the city business, I would say yes.
Sure,
You know,
let's drop it then.
wouldn't- But this particular case, I'd say.
Okay, let's drop it.
I've heard a request to drop it. Let's move on. Consider moving a July City Council meeting from the 16th to the 23rd. I will be back from vacation late Sunday, the 15th, and will not be prepared for a meeting on the 16th.
No.
If you're willing to move to the 23rd, I can come and be prepared. Otherwise, you'll have the meeting without me. What's your pleasure?
Fine. Is everybody going to be here the 23rd?
You want a motion?
I'd like to move
Fine
to
with the 23rd.
Fine with the 23rd?
Fine, I'm
I'm
fine,
fine with that.
23rd. And I'll give you a motion to that effect if you need one.
I think we're agreed that the meeting will be held on the 23rd. Oral communications number 2. Anyone out there who wishes? Going. We've had our closed session.
Closing memory.
Yes, and the name again is,
Pearl Ray Chapman.
we'll close in memory of Pearl Ray Chapman. Thank you all very much.